Hey, y'all. A few weeks ago, we did an in depth episode on the United States government's attacks on the Cuban people, specifically around the oil blockade and other tactics that are being used to try to overthrow the government there. We won't rehash those in depth today. Rather, today, we are looking at potential solutions for the problem, a way that the people can fight back. But to update you on the situation, things are dire. On March 9th, Trump said that Marco Rubio is, quote, dealing with Cuba. And then he said it may be a friendly takeover. It may not be a friendly takeover. Wouldn't really matter because they're down to, as they say, fumes. They have no energy. They have no money. They are going to make either a deal or we'll do it just as easy anyway. This is a very explicit regime change threat to an island that poses no threat to the United States government, has never attacked us, causes no problem for the US government except serving as an example of an alternative economic and political system 90 miles off the coast of Florida. So, as you listen to this today, think about how you can communicate about this crisis to your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors, your loved ones. Think about how you can intervene directly in your community or in your political circles to try to improve the situation in whatever small or large way you can. And if it is possible, please send a donation to the convoy for Cuba because the work they're doing is absolutely critical. All right. And with that, on to the interview. Welcome to Workers Lit, the podcast about fighting for the narrative. Welcome to the pod, James Schneider. He's a communications director for Progressive International, one of the organizations involved in the Nuestra America Convoy for Cuba. James, welcome to Workers Lit.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you.
Well, of course, we wish we could have you under better circumstances. Cuba is going through an extremely difficult time right now. Well, we've mentioned the convoy on previous episodes to get people to donate. Could you talk more specifically? What is the Nuestra America Convoy for Cuba? What are you doing? Just the overall. Let folks know because what we do hear about Cuba in our media right now, what precious little is just oh, it's so horrible, nothing can be done. The only thing that could possibly happen to make anything better is you know, uh, a noble American intervention. Lindsey Graham said yesterday at the time of recording, Cuba's next in reference to Iran. It's like a maybe, finish your meal before you go into the next one. Jesus Christ. But yeah, talk about what you're up to and what y'all are actually doing to try to make this situation, this horrible humanitarian crisis, better.
Yeah, that Lindsey Graham interview was completely bananas, and also saying that it's a holy war against Iran is just, yeah. Um, so, as I'm sure you know, the Trump administration is strangling Cuba. It's intensifying what has already been going on for more than 6 decades in a campaign that, from the beginning, was specifically designed to bring hardship to the Cuban people. That's not a conspiracy theory. That was a State Department memo from 1960 laying out the strategy: create hardship, overthrow the government. And for more than 65 years, successive administrations have tried to do that through all sorts of things: attempted invasions, trying to create coups, uh, trying to poison Fidel Castro, poison cigars, all sorts of completely crazy things, fake apps funded by USAID to try to create dissent, all of this stuff. But it's come to a real head.
Not to mention, like Bay of Pigs, Cuban
Yeah,
Missile
yeah,
Crisis,
exactly.
uh, terrorist bombings. I mean, like there is a real. It's not just through the economic means. There has been direct violence against the
Yeah,
island.
absolutely. And this Trump administration has amped things up further. Um, Last year was relatively quiet compared to this year, where things have really taken off. But Cuba was put back on the list of state sponsors of terrorism by this Trump administration. Biden had just taken it off in his sort of closing minutes, and that greatly restricts any companies from doing any financial business with Cuba at all. It makes it extremely difficult for them to import things. But Trump then has taken it way further by pirating fuel tankers delivering oil to Cuba. I don't think Cuba has received a drop of oil since December, and threatening tariffs to any country that does deliver oil to Cuba. So if anybody wants to help Cuba, no, you're going to get punched in the head. All the time we're strangling, all the time that the US is strangling Cuba. And the impact is, of course, terrible. Imagine your own neighborhood. If you didn't have any energy for 2 months, 3 months, what would that look like? In the case of Cuba, that means the garbage trucks can't pick up the rubbish, so diseases begin to spread. The fumigation trucks can't do fogging, which means more mosquito spread. It means for children needing healthcare, for old people needing healthcare, energy is severely rationed. People have to walk or cycle everywhere because there's no other means of getting around. Health supplies may have gone off by the time they get to Cuba. And all of this is, although Trump has a new executive order at the end of January this year saying that Cuba is an extreme threat to the United States.
Cuba is right now a failed nation, and they don't even have jet fuel to get for airplanes to take off, and they should absolutely make a deal because it's really a humanitarian threat. In the meantime, there's an embargo, there's no oil, there's no money, there's no anything.
If a deal isn't made, would you consider an operation like the one in Venezuela?
I don't want to answer that. Why would I answer that?
And it's only a threat by way of example, because in the face of all of this hardship for more than 6 decades, Cuba, through deciding it was going to prioritize the health and education of its own people, has delivered healthcare outcomes at a similar or better level than what most US Americans can expect, an equivalent or a higher life expectancy. And Cuba has been really the most solidaristic nation on earth. If there's a health crisis anywhere, Cuban doctors are immediately there. When there was the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, it's Cuban doctors who are there risking their lives on the front line trying to stop it from spreading. When the COVID pandemic broke out, and if you remember, Italy was hit very badly very early on, Cuban doctors immediately fly in, risking their own lives to help. All across the Caribbean, there are Cuban-trained doctors who are the lifeblood of health services in many, many countries. These are the things that you won't hear on most US media. And so it's because of these things, it's because Trump has admitted, he's said, in fact, he's bragged that there's an embargo, that there's no oil, that there's no money, that there's no anything. That's Trump himself, in his own words, speaking with remarkable clarity about what the US empire is really doing. So in the face of all of that, the Nuestra América Convoy for Cuba brings together peoples of conscience from around the world to bring humanitarian aid to Cuba by air, land, and sea, converging all together in Havana on the 21st of March.
Well, the Nuestra America Convoy for Cuba. I know you're part of Progressive International, one of the organizations involved. This is a growing effort. What is y'all's mission? I know a big part of it is bringing, you're talking about bringing humanitarian aid to Cuba, putting this into light. What specifically are you focusing on with humanitarian aid, and how do you want to use this as a way to put eyes on Cuba as is necessary?
So when we announced this as an emergency response less than 4 weeks ago, or maybe it's exactly 4 weeks ago, we envisaged a simple sea mission. And the response we've had from people from all over the world was so phenomenal that we expanded the mission from a single sea mission to a global convoy. So we will have people coming from many parts of the world, some by boat, many by plane, bringing key supplies that the Cuban people need, which are, you can find a list of things to help on our website, nuestraamericaconvoy.org. But the key things that are being brought is some foodstuffs, key medicines, and solar panels. Cuba is undergoing a very rapid and absolutely necessary shift in its energy system. And this can't happen fast enough because of the strangulation of the oil economy. So there will be people taking off from different parts of the world and setting sail from different parts of the world to bring all of that aid together. But it's not just bringing aid. All of these things are critical that need to be brought, and the need of the Cuban people right now is serious. But it also comes with a very clear message, which is the Cuban people are not alone. They have not been forgotten by the peoples of the world, that people can see that this terrible violence being done to them by the US empire does not speak for what the vast majority of the people on Earth think. And so there will be critical supplies, especially critical medicines. That's extremely important. That will help alleviate the hardship right now in Cuba, which is getting worse by the day, by the week, by the hour even. But it will hopefully bring a lot of attention to Cuba, but also a message to the Cuban people. Imagine being under such an aggressive siege for so long, to have been squeezed so much, all for the crime of deciding that you want to direct your economy and your country's development towards your sovereign needs, what you and what your people want, as opposed to the interests of a few gangsters and big business. And if you do that, especially so close to the United States, and if you become their enemy, and so they have been under attack. But if they are defeated, it will not end there. As we see from how the Trump administration is operating now, bombing country after country after country, it will not end. There was a recruiting poster that the Spanish Republicans used in Britain during the Spanish Civil War, which just read, "If you tolerate this, then your children will be next." And in the face of this incredible violence we're seeing meted out by the US empire around the world, that couldn't be truer today.
I think this convoy will put people in mind, of course, of the late 2025 global Sumud Flotilla that went to Gaza. Greta Thunberg was there, Chris Smalls, and many other people in a 50 some odd boat flotilla that attempted to bring aid to Gaza while the IDF was able to stop most of the boats. It was a massive media hit to Israel's siege. That many people put down some of the aid that had to be let through from Rafah just because of the criticism to the scale of this, to the scale of the media criticism and fire and even UN resolutions that Israel came under as a result of this blockade. Do you see yourself as influenced by this flotilla, and is the idea to kind of replicate some of that?
Greatly influenced and inspired by the Global Sumud Flotilla, which is a fantastic example of the basic solidarity of peoples to act in the face of the world's gravest crimes. It will be a different mission in that we are able to also fly in things to Cuba. Of course, that would be impossible in the case of Gaza, and we are highly confident that we will bring the critical aid that we wish to bring, which is it's a different situation than it is. But yes, it's both takes great inspiration from that effort, and there are also a number of people involved in the Convoy for Cuba that were participants and organizers in the Global Sumud Flotilla. So it operates extremely closely to each other, which makes sense. If you look at the imperialist assault on both the Cuban people and the Palestinian people, these are part of linked processes. And these are two peoples that have had, for many, many decades, a great relationship with one another, standing in steadfastness against the crimes that are endlessly done to them. And yet they are able to stand up with dignity and continue to march forward for justice for themselves, but not only for themselves, with a shared horizon for all people of humanity.
I mean, even in 2023, but prior to October 7th and the renewed wave of attacks on Gaza, President Diaz-Canel, when he spoke in New York City, I was present, and he spoke about the Palestinian people even then, president of Cuba. There is that long standing solidarity there. So there's that direct connection, and of course the idea of siege. What if you can get away with it in one country, you can get away with it in another country. This sort of escalating. I mean, the fact that Lindsey Graham and people like that feel comfortable saying, "Well, we took down Iran, we took down Venezuela, now we can take down," the way they talk about it, this sort of naked aggression. There has to be a stop to it. You said that there have been people that were involved in Sumud Flotilla that are involved in this effort. Could you talk about some of the organizations that are involved in the convoy and some of the people that have come together? You said that there has been a really great wave of support. I'd love if you could talk about that. There's a lot of very bleak stuff, but the fact that there are so many people and organizations all around the world willing to help is an encouraging fact that we should point out.
Yeah, so I mean, I apologize in advance for forgetting a huge number of people who've
For
been
sure. And we'll link
involved.
the website as
Yes,
well,
please.
so you can
And
review.
yeah,
People can review.
I think the first thing to say is that there's a huge Cuba solidarity movement, which is decades long. And in every country of the world, pretty much, there is a Cuba solidarity organization which has kept up this struggle and has raised awareness and has probably for years been sending solidarity and aid to Cuba quietly and effectively. So we're working with a number of those organizations and building on that. There are other organizations like ourselves, the Progressive International, the People's Forum in New York, Code Pink in the US, and we have a number of strategic partners, including MediCuba, the People's Health Movement, Global Health Partners, the US Peace Council, the National Lawyers Guild. I mean, I can go on and on. Um, there are trade unions, there are political parties, there are civil society groups that all over the world, particularly in the region, but all over the world, that have given their time, their energy, their resources to make this start, to bring as much as possible to materially help the Cuban people now, but also to make a big political intervention to show the strength and support for the Cuban people who will need it as this wild aggression that was laid out as a doctrine, I think, most cogently by Marco Rubio in his speech to the Munich Security Conference, where he laid out his vision of a world order, which is basically a white Euro American aggressive force that seeks to recolonize, in effect, parts of the world and hold down the aspirations of ordinary people to live in dignity in most countries of Earth. It's a clearly racist strategy, enforcing more aggressively the global color line.
I mean,
And
saying in Munich, the so-called crimes of Europe, y'all shouldn't think about it. It's like, there's a couple. Like, and he did come off like it was the Munich speech was so interesting to me because he says like America, like he's saying it triumphantly, the kind of stuff that the left has been saying. Like it's like America will always be or a European, outgrowth that's colonial and whatever. And it's like he's like sounding like Fanon for a
yeah,
second there. But just on the other side, it's very much we've said it many times, but this has been the ever really over the last few years, it has just been a people saying the quiet part out loud, louder and louder and louder. It is a moment of which side are you on. There is complete clarity, I think. I mean, as much as the media tries to hide it, if you actually listen to the language of the ruling class, there's complete clarity about what's going on.
absolutely, entirely. And the thing I found so interesting about the responses to that Rubio speech is that the obvious racism could not be heard by most analysts sitting in Brussels or Washington or London or Paris. Just could not hear it. And if you said to them, they said, "No, what are you talking about? Talking about a stronger Western alliance, that sort of thing." Anybody listening to that elsewhere in the world immediately knows what that means. if you were giving a speech saying that for 500 years, European missionaries, explorers, and soldiers spread European ideals, and that this was a very good thing, and the very bad thing that's happened since 1945 is that contraction in the face of, as he said, godless communism and anti-colonial uprisings. Yeah, it's a clear what side are you on moment.
I mean, I come
And
from a very conservative part of the United States, and even here, like, if you said something like that, people would be like, "All right, chill out, man." Like, like most people, like, even your like normal average conservative, like with whatever, it'd be like, it's not just racist; it's also just like weird. It's like that's not how normal people think about the world. Yeah.
I don't think these guys are normal, though. I mean,
No. Oh, they're the weirdest. No,
yeah,
we are ruled
yeah,
by the weirdest
yeah,
freaks alive.
yeah,
But
yeah. People hear it from the rest of the world, and they can see. And as you say, there are no neutrals here. Desmond Tutu said that when an elephant is standing on the tail of a mouse, neutrality isn't neutral. That is so incredibly
mhm.
clear. And efforts to both sides colonial imperial situations, it does not make any sense. But the thing that is very good, I mean, you said that perhaps for conservative people in the part of the US that you grew up, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for most people. If you look at the polling of people in global north countries, in the US, in the UK, in France, and so on, now on Iran, and before on Gaza, the vast majority of people are opposed to the actions that are taking place. It's always presented. I mean, that's part of the con of presenting ruling class violent interests as being civilizational in that they are meant to co-opt the interests of their subordinate people in their own countries, and it just we have to make that not work. We have to make that not possible. And I do think that is. I mean, we're veering off from Cuba, but it's all part of the same.
Oh
It's
yeah.
all part of the same struggle. The impact on living standards for ordinary people all over the world by this assault on Iran is going to be significant. It's already going to be. It's already going to be significant, and there is a real opening, I think, to link up the struggles that the majority of people in the north are facing month to month with the obviously much more existential threat that many peoples and countries in the global south are facing. And it is, I think it's only through that, through uniting those mutinies, that we will be able to not just stop more crimes, and not just to roll them back, but to have a different horizon, a horizon where things that everybody says that they want, which are basic human dignity for all people, mutual respect for all, and the ability for people to get on and live in peace and do their own thing, which is pretty much what everyone says that they want, that can actually become a plausible reality.
Which, frankly, I mean that part of the reason the Cuban government is such a threat is that's what they've represented over the
Absolutely.
last over the decades. You can nitpick their human rights record while overlooking your own country's human rights record, but they have. I mean, like you mentioned their solidarity efforts. I mean, they put their lives on the line in Africa to fight against apartheid. Their efforts, their scientific efforts are fantastic. I mean, I know of people in the United States who have gone to Cuba for, like, treatments on mental stuff, on lung stuff. The fact that we don't have access to a lot of these medical, techniques here in the West are because of our blockade. There is a Western death count to things like lung cancer and premature death due to Alzheimer's that, if some of these techniques were allowed to proliferate,
Absolutely.
could
Absolutely.
improve.
And there were first responders, there were 9/11 first responders who got treatment for free in Cuba.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
solidarity is to all peoples. It doesn't just because people in the US live under a horrific government doesn't mean that they wouldn't help US American people. But I think the point you made about the medicines and the cost to humanity of that is so stark. You mentioned Alzheimer's. there's an Alzheimer's drug which the Cuban biotech sector. In fact, I'm going to just stop for a second and talk about the Cuban biotech sector, because this is something
Please.
most people won't know about, because Cuba is a relatively poor country because of the blockade. It has a world-leading biotech sector because in the 1980s the government shifted resources towards this cutting edge research, and they have come up with huge numbers of incredibly effective drugs. It has an amazing sector, and one of them that they're working on is an Alzheimer's drug, which, given the the scale at which that disease is expanding, would be absolutely remarkable. There's a film out at the moment called Teresita's Dream, which I think is produced by Belly of the Beast, a Cuban outfit, which is really worth looking up if you can, which is about the efforts to produce that drug. But also during COVID, where Cuban biotech sector produced their own vaccines. And of course, they vaccinated the Cuban population, and they did very well there, and they shared those vaccines on not trying to charge people to get big profits with other countries. But imagine what could have been done if they weren't doing that with two arms and one of their legs tied behind their back. Then many more people could have been vaccinated much earlier, and the disease could have had less of an impact. And you see this in all sorts of things. I mean, anybody who has any passing acquaintance with science knows that the sharing of information and the spreading of information is how you get innovations faster, you test things faster. The fact that this really quite remarkable centre of excellence is cut off from large sectors of the rest of the biomedical field means that all of us are poorer, and we're all more likely to suffer some illness or suffer for longer or have a loved one who does. That could have been prevented or could have been made easier if we had the most basic of humane international relations.
I've had the opportunity to numerous times meet, talk with, have dinner with Manolo de los Santos of the People's Forum, and a point that I've heard him make a couple times, very correctly, um, is not only has Cuba done some of these things with its arms and legs tied behind its back, with the blockade, with all of that, also, you've got to compare it to other countries of its size and region, right? Um, Comparing Cuba to a country like the United States of, 20 times its population, size, resources. I mean, compare Cuba to, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, even like Puerto Rico, an American territory. All of those countries, by the way, beautiful countries that have done amazing things. But like, think about Cuba's capacity, despite the siege, despite its small amount of population, and it's because of its political system. It's because of its people. It's because of what it's been able to accomplish, throwing off the yoke of American imperialism as much as it can. And that's the kind of thing that we need to be repeating, because we talk about the battle for the narrative, and it's like, I'd say, one, your average American, if they think about Cuba, they're like, yeah, that's like a country we don't like, I guess. I think they have cool beaches. There's some guy, Fidel Castro. I guess he's the president, probably. I mean, it is, people don't think about it. It's not an animosity. It's just a not thinking about it. But like, this is the kind of thing that we need to be talking about in our daily lives. We got a lot of great feedback on our episode about Cuba we did a few weeks ago. That was an overall kind of um some everything between like a primer, the strategy, the history. I recommend people go back and listen. But a lot of people said they'd learned, I mean, people on the left that typically listen to this podcast said they learned things that they just never heard about before. And that's, I think that's a big part of the mission of this convoy, is to break through that sort of media environment. So I'll say, what efforts are you taking presently to try to sort of break through the noise, to get to, because obviously this is a mission bringing humanitarian aid, but it's also a mission to highlight the struggles of the Cuban people. What efforts are you taking, and what efforts should we continue to take on the left more broadly, internationally, to break through the noise, to highlight the struggles of the Cuban people, beyond, of course, listening and sharing the Workers Lit podcast? which is merely a. I mean, that's we all know we got to be doing that. But aside from that,
yes, do that first, and after doing that, yes, to help break the information blockade. So on the Nuestra América Convoy, we're bringing with us a range of communicators and embedded media to tell the story as much as possible of what is going on, and people can see for themselves what is happening in Cuba now, and hopefully learn some of the context, some of that history, because we do have to break the information blockade, because otherwise we don't know about what should be, in world historical terms, very basic facts that people should know. But it's not anyone's fault for not knowing, because there is an information blockade, because it's not something that you are going to hear about on the news. You're very unlikely to be watching TV and run across a short documentary about Cuban healthcare, or a short documentary about Angola and how the Cubans fought with the Angolans and the Namibians to secure their freedom and defeat apartheid South Africa, or whatever episodes of history it might be. So that is an extremely important thing. We aim to do our part with the convoy, and for it to not just stop on the 21st of March, that this is an ongoing intervention to bring hope and solidarity to the Cuban people, to bring things that they need, but also to bring something to a wider audience, which is knowledge and information, and also ways in which to act, not just to learn about the structural horrors of the world in order to go, well, now I know that and I can continue to be cynical and a bit upset, but to take concrete action, to actually stand with the people who in their daily lives are trying to make the world a better place, through confronting the greatest force that prevents people's self-determination in a meaningful sense, prevents sovereign development of countries, which is the US military. It has been the armed wing of efforts to destroy anybody taking an independent course, of all sorts of independent courses. I mean, if you look at the countries that have tried to do things differently, they are extremely heterogeneous. They have different political systems, they have different histories, they have different cultures. They're all, it's very heterodox. The thing that unites them all is that by being an alternative, they're going to be under attack. And through defending whatever project is standing against that imperial violence, but most importantly is standing for the right to have your own sovereign development. People should be allowed to choose their own future, and that actually is the greatest threat. That's why Cuba is there's Trump's executive order. That's why Marco Rubio and co want to destroy it, because for Marco Rubio, Cuba is not the place that his parents came from. It is a place that was lost to that Euro-American supremacist project that was so successful for 500 years and whose retrenchment he laments.
I'll never forget the interview where Ted Cruz is like, my family came from Cuba. They were oppressed. Now, to be fair, it was under the American-backed dictatorship, but still, I hate them. It's like, all right, man. Sure, sounds good. Just truly shocking. If you ever are like, oh, these people are too smart. No, they're not. What is something that our listeners can do materially right now? First of all, when we want people to support the convoy, but also what can they be doing in their home countries? Well, about 2/3 of our listeners are American. We do have listeners all across the world. We have listeners in Mexico, Canada, the UK. We have the one listener in Hong Kong who's multiple times emailed and said, do episodes in Mandarin. I love that guy. I'm working on it. What would you ask? What's the big ask right now? What can people do to take action?
So to take action right now on the convoy, you can of course share and amplify the mission. You could organize educational events in your community, and I think of course, donate to support the mission financially and materially. But I think a really, really important thing that your listeners in all the countries that you mentioned they have these is join your Cuba solidarity movement, strengthen it, teach yourself, but also, like all movements that have been in resistance and in the defensive posture for so long, they always need new energy. So go and join. Find new places where they haven't had an educational event. Find new people to talk to about it. Find new ways to bring people into support for the Cuban people. And then the other thing is, of course, link up all of those struggles. They link up naturally, organically. Defending Venezuela or Cuba or whatever. All of these things are very connected. But I think that would be the best thing that people can do. I mean, right now, with the world as it is in this scary but world historical moment, as it seems, of big changes, the agency of people rises. At moments of change, the agency of people rises. You doing things now is more important than you doing things 20 years ago, just because of how the tectonics of world history are moving right now. So if you are doom scrolling, if you are depressed by the situation, if you don't know, if you want to do something but don't know how, put everything down, find something to do, go and find the local group that does. If it's Cuba, great. If it's something else, also great. Go and find that group, find other people, connect them up, read, share, learn with your friends, anybody near you, and find the ways to take action, because there are always ways to take action and to connect up the struggles of people. The struggles for people for basic human dignity wherever you live are the same struggle that other people are facing, just in a different set of conditions, and there are always ways to link those up together.
Absolutely. I'll add, if you're our listeners in the United States, there's direct work that needs to be done to breaking the blockade. If your efforts in or if you are a listener in another country, this would be a great time for your country to start defying the American blockade. Our Mexican listeners, I'm thinking of especially. It's a tough thing to do. It's hard for me. I can't sit here as an American and be like, how dare y'all not do this? I'm not, whatever. But it's like this is if there was ever a time to start defying American imperialism openly, that's a great thing to organize for. So absolutely. Um, I would also say the destination is Havana, the 21st of March. It's probably difficult for anyone at this point to make new plans, but at the very least, be one donating, as you said. All the links will be in the bio, but also make sure you're sharing. Posting on social media is not enough, but it is meaningful when a lot of people do it at the same time. There's a decided effort to keep this from happening. And I also say, like, never underestimate sharing in your just sort of direct personal networks. If you're been in a big group chat, if you're in Discords, if you're in Telegram, WhatsApp, whatever, like, share it. Families, it is meaningful to share this with people in your life, people who you might just assume agree with you or know about this. They don't necessarily. There's a concerted effort to keep them from knowing. And frankly, there could be no better introduction to this than the Nuestra America Convoy to Cuba. It's like, who's going to object to this, right? Aside from real freaks, this is a great entryway to talking about this issue. So that this should be a moment where we can really mass introduce people to the crisis, we can put pressure against the Trump administration, because make no mistake, they don't just want to put pressure on Cuba or keep it out of the consciousness. They would love regime change in Cuba, and they would settle for just regime obliteration in Cuba. They would be happy to turn Cuba into another Libya, into another Syria. They do not care about the outcomes for the Cuban people. In fact, a miserable, divided, violent Cuba is preferable to them than a solidaristic, healthy, thriving one. Because if a rival political system can thrive 90 miles off the coast of the United States in a country smaller than most U.S. states, then well, that's people are going to start asking questions. Well, James, we really appreciate you coming on today. Is there anything else that you would like to point up? Anything you would like to plug? Obviously, this whole episode's been a plug, but anything else you'd like to throw out there before we wrap it up today?
No, that's great. I'm very grateful for you having me on. And just again, to the listeners, please do go to nuestraamericaconvoy.org. There's information for how you can help, how you can get involved. And let's do everything that we can to make the 21st bring the most aid that we can and the biggest message to the Cuban people that they are not alone, that they are seen, that they are heard, that they're loved, that they're respected, and that together we can offer a vision well beyond the imperialist horizon that we live under in a world where human dignity is afforded for everybody.
I once read a short story where in the year 2100, the United Nations, which was much more effective and altruistic and beautiful, uh, was headquartered in Havana, and that's a future I'd love to imagine, and we can build it right now. Well, thank you, James. Folks, do what he said. Links in bio, and yeah, break the blockade. Bye, y'all.